Hello and welcome to this live Google Hangout on air coming to you from University College Dublin. Today we're going to be speaking about two programs, the MSc and the LLM in Criminology and Criminal Justice, which are from the UCD Sutherland School of Law. My name is Lisa Flannery. I'm the UCD Marketing Manager based in the University Relations Office here in Belfast. Joining me on the panel is lead academic Professor Ian ODonnell. You will have seen a bit of video about Ian already. Also on the panel is a student of the programme, Charlotte Jane Farrar. And finally joining us is Justine McCann from the UCD Sutherland School of Law Programme Office. Between the four of us, we're going to let you know a little bit about what makes the programme so interesting, and the kind of students who should apply, what students get out of it, the career prospects, and why you should consider studying at UCD. So first I'm going to introduce Professor Ian ODonnell. As part of our campaign leading up to these Hangouts, we produced a series of videos. So you may have seen a 30-second video talking about Professor O'Donnell and his area of expertise. He's now going to talk a little bit more about that, and then he'll reflect on how his expertise pertains to the particular MSc and LLM programs. So Ian, if you're ready, I'll ask you to talk now, please.
Sure, thanks very much, Lisa. I wanted to say a little bit about criminology in Ireland just for a moment or two, and then to talk about a research project that I've just finished and another one that's underway. The first thing I suppose to say is to prospective students of criminology that Ireland, our Prime Minister likes to say that Ireland's a great country to do business in, a great little country to do business in, and I think that applies to criminology too. It's a great little country to come and learn about criminology and criminal justice. The only Institute of Criminology in Ireland is based in the School of Law here in UCD, in a brand new building that we moved into a couple of years ago, which provides a fantastic built environment for students. And the program that we offer is very wide-ranging in scope. We have modules on crime and social control, on policing. That's offered by a colleague in the School of Sociology. We have a couple of modules on the history of crime and justice, on the theory of penal reform, on prisons and punishment policy more generally, on victims, on desistance. So there's a wide range, and we attract students from a cross-section of society, a variety of ages and backgrounds and so on as well. There's an opportunity for students to do a research dissertation. And I think I'm just going to speak for a moment or two now about a piece of research that I finished last year that features in the video that accompanies this Hangout, which was about how prisoners deal with prolonged solitary confinement. How do people deal with the passage of time when they're in a place they don't want to be, on their own for a period of time that might measure years, sometimes even decades. What I did was I spoke and visited prisoners on death row in the United States and various maximum security prisons. I wrote and emailed and spoke to people in forms of religious life that require voluntary reclusion. I read hundreds of prisoner autobiographies going right back to the 1830s when the modern prison came into existence and was based on the idea that everybody would spend a period of time alone, use that time to reflect on their wrongdoing, and that they'd emerge from prison reformed and well able to play a role in society. When I had finished my the research component of the work, I held a couple of seminars with life sentence prisoners in Mountjoy Prison in Dublin to see to what extent the ideas that I was coming up with made sense to them in terms of the way they were living their lives. Now, they weren't solitary prisoners, but they were long-term prisoners, and they had to deal with the issue of time in the same way that other prisoners do. What did I find? I found, first of all, I suppose that isolation is damaging. That's the first thing to say. It's inhumane to keep people apart from other people. We're gregarious creatures. As a species, we need to have company, and to deny people company causes them harm. But I found that prisoners were much more resilient, I think, than they're given credit for. And I came up with a variety of strategies that prisoners use to cope with the passage of time. They reduce the volume of it by sleeping more. They immerse themselves in the present. They become wrapped in an activity like art or creative writing or sometimes litigation. They sometimes resist the prison through acts of defiance. So it was a fascinating project to learn from prisoners the kinds of approaches they took to deal with a part of prison life that everybody talks about, but few people really subject to scrutiny, namely how to deal with this huge burden of time that weighs down on an individual when they begin a prison sentence, and that's even more oppressive when they're serving that sentence in conditions of complete isolation. So that's a piece of research that I finished, and I'm going to speak for a minute or two about a piece that's underway, and then I'll hand back to Lisa. So what I'm interested in at the moment is capital punishment in Ireland since independence. So from about 1923 up to the abolition of capital punishment in 1990. Now, the last person to be hanged was in 1954, and after 1964, the only people who could be sentenced to death were people who killed a member of the police force or a prison officer in the course of their duty. There weren't very many of them, and their sentences were automatically commuted to 40 years imprisonment. But what I'm really interested in is what happened to prisoners who were sentenced to death and reprieved when execution was the mandatory penalty for murder. And there are about 65 or 66 of these individuals, and I'm trying to work out to what extent was the government influenced in its decision whether to spare them or not by factors such as whether the jury made a recommendation to mercy, whether the trial judge sent a letter to the Minister for Justice that exhorted the Minister to advise the Cabinet to spare the individual's life, whether if there was a popular movement in support of the prisoner, this exercised much influence on the decision-making process. So it's an attempt to look at an area of criminal justice that's received a lot of attention in other countries, particularly in the US, in a smaller context, that is Ireland, and to see what kinds of factors are at work that would help us to understand the decision-making process after the person has been sentenced to death. And I think that's a good example of the kind of work that can be done in a small jurisdiction that raises issues that are of much more general significance.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ian. We think from listening to Ian there, you can really start to appreciate how his academic research, both in historic context and in the present day, can give us an awful lot to learn about the criminal justice system, both in Ireland and throughout the world. And it's interesting that the student who's joining us today has got a global perspective. Charlotte has both French and English citizenship and chose to study in Ireland in recent times. So Charlotte, I'm going to hand over to you now to talk for a couple of minutes, please, about why you chose to study in UCD and what you are learning so far on the criminology program and what you intend to do with that learning afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Charlotte now.
Thank you, Lisa. I have an undergraduate degree in law from my law school in my hometown in France, and I was able after that to go and study in Galway for a year, and I really liked living in Ireland and studying in Ireland, and I had to return to France to start a master's degree in criminology there. That I had chosen because it was one of the very rare masters in criminology in France, but I was very disappointed with the level of the teaching in that program in France, because criminology isn't recognized in France yet, and I decided to study elsewhere. Now, when I was looking for a master's degree in criminology, I decided to apply for the degree in UCD because I wanted to go back to Ireland, and I believed that with the Institute of Criminology, UCD offered the best opportunity to study criminology in this country. And I do not regret my choice at all, because the level of teaching here is very high, and I was really pleasantly surprised with everything that I was able to study and learn here. And I really appreciated the fact that we had 3 modules per semester, which allowed us to have plenty of time to work on topics that really interested us, and to choose our own essays and to focus on things that were really important to us. And the staff is also very accessible, so I was able to talk to staff before I arrived to UCD about the program. And I was also supported throughout my decision to study execution methods in the United States and in France. So I'm working on the death penalty as well at the moment for my dissertation, and I felt really supported throughout my degree here in UCD. So I'm very pleased with my decision to come here.
Thank you very